Good morning, buenos dias. Welcome to the Black Men's Brain Health Conference. We're so happy to have you here today. My name is Dr. Monica Rivera-Mindt, and I am the very proud and grateful co-principal investigator of the Black Men's Brain Health Initiative, which Dr. Robert Turner and we wrote this grant to National Institute of Health and Aging back in, Robert, was it 2019 or 2020 that we wrote that grant? 2019, and through a lot of time, blood, sweat, and tears, we are here at our third conference, and we are so excited to be here. It's just incredible. So I want to welcome you all to the conference, and I want to start with gratitude. I'm tasked here today to welcome you and to provide a conference overview. So first, I always like to start with gratitude, and on behalf of Dr. Turner, Dr. Stroman, and our entire team, we want to thank the National Institutes of Health and particularly the National Institute of Aging, which supports our work so tremendously for these last now 3 years. And we actually have at least one member of NIA here with us today, Dr. Nina Silverberg. I think I just saw you. So please join me in thanking NIA and Dr. Silverberg for joining us. We've had members from NIA come every year to the conference, which I think speaks not to just providing financial support, but that they are in it here with us to support it. And that means everything. It's not just talk, it's real support, and we appreciate you. We also, of course, want to thank the Alzheimer's Association for their tremendous support of all of our work. In particular, they have supported fearlessly and generously the Emerging Scholars Program, which we have cultivated over the years. So I know we have folks here from here. Dr. Hill is probably here, has been here. Dr. Maria Carrillo was here yesterday. So please join me in welcoming them as well. Thank you. It doesn't happen without y'all. I also want to give a very special thank you to University of Nevada at Las Vegas, to Dr. Jay Vickers and the whole operation here. They've made us feel so welcome. And I also want to thank the Cleveland Clinic Lou Ruvo Center. We held our Emerging Scholars pre-conference program there yesterday at their beautiful Frank Gehry building. They hosted us the entire day and provided us with the most beautiful reception we could have ever imagined. It was so beautiful and fancy. I'm still a little bit overwhelmed. And the facilities there are great. They have such a beautiful mission to help individuals living with Alzheimer's and related dementias, and their work is just incredible. We also want to give a very special thanks to Dr. Dylan Wint, who is their center director and has been so incredibly generous and supportive of our program here. And I want to say a word because we were looking through the program and we realized that there wasn't a whole lot of spotlight on our Emerging Scholars program. And I just want to shine a very bright light on that program. So now we're into cohort 3. So we've been running this program for 3 years. This program is dedicated to advancing workforce capacity in Alzheimer's and related dementias, because what we know is that our population here in the United States is getting rapidly more diverse. It's also aging at a rapid rate as well. Yet our workforce capacity is not ready for the tsunami of what's coming in terms of diverse individuals with Alzheimer's and related dementia. And that's why we put in and have developed this incredible Emerging Scholars program, where every year we welcome about 10 scholars into this competitive program, where they receive training, didactics, mentorship, and not just mentorship, but networking, where we pick up the phone, we call them, we support them, we want them to get that next job, that next fellowship, whatever we can. And we're so grateful to our scholars. We're so proud of them. And we're especially also thankful to our leadership in the Emerging Scholars program, including Dr. Desiree Bird, Dr. Roland Thorpe, and Dr. Brian Gonzalez. I don't know if they want to wave their hand to say hi, but we would love to say thank you to you. There's Dr. Bird, Dr. Thorpe. Thank you so much. And we also, again, want to acknowledge all of our wonderful scholars. We have scholars here, not just from cohorts 2 and 3, but we also have scholars from cohort 1 who came here on their own dime. And we are so grateful to have you here as well. We're so proud of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you. In terms of the conference itself, this conference is unique because in our envisioning it, we've never seen anything like this, where we actually bring together scientists, community members, clinicians, and other policymakers to all be in one room together. So folks like us, academic scientists, we tend to end up in conferences just with a bunch of other scientists. And while I love science and I love other scientists, we felt that if we're going to do this work, we need to be doing it in partnership, in lockstep with our community members. And so in here in this room, we have a number of community members as well. And I just wanted to highlight one in particular. So there's a certain gentleman named Mr. Phil Griffin, who is a Community Science Partnership Board member for the CEDAR study, which stands for Community Engaged Digital Alzheimer's Research. Phil, could you just wave your hand, say hi? He came all the way out here from the East Coast. We're really grateful to have you, Phil, here, and all of our incredible, but you're a first timer, so I'm calling you out because you're a first timer here to the conference, but we have many community members who've been coming here from all over the country for all 3 years, so we're really grateful to all of you. Welcome. And in terms of this year's theme for the conference, so every year, this conference has a different theme. So we've looked at risk and resilience factors, we've looked at sociocultural factors as they pertain to brain health. And again, whatever the theme, it's always dedicated to understanding brain health equity and Alzheimer's and related dementias as it relates to Black men and health equities more broadly. We welcome everybody here from all backgrounds, and it's so wonderful to do this work. And this year's conference is focused on community-based participatory research. That is our theme today. So you're going to hear a lot about community work. Now, why are we talking about this work? So let me tell you, for many years, many years, folks have been talking in research about how we need to have more diverse studies, more diverse clinical trials. And this is important that we diversify this research because it turns out that Black individuals and individuals from the Latinx population in particular, they're up to twice as likely to get to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's and related dementias. So twice as likely as non-Latinx white individuals in this country. Yet they're significantly underrepresented in research and clinical trials, and not by a little, by a lot. So a key goal of this conference is to change that, to get folks to learn about research, understand research. And one key method of research is community-based participatory research. And this is an evidence-based approach to increase the inclusion of diverse populations into research. Yet it has not been taken up by many big studies. It has not been really deployed. And so even though we have an evidence-based approach to do this work, it has not been taken up widely. And we're here to change that. That's why we're all here in partnership and why this is going to be this year's theme. And so you are in for many great talks, panel discussions, and the like over the course of today and tomorrow. We'll be breaking for lunch as well. And we are going to be having a networking reception today after the conference. So please, keep a little gas in the tank for the end of the day so that we can all enjoy each other, meet each other in fellowship. Last but not least, before we get into the formal program, I want to talk a little bit about intention setting. So this is something that I have learned to pause and think about thanks to the great Deborah Stroman, who's one of our leaders here as well at the Black Men's Brain Health Initiative. And so if we don't set a goal, if we don't set an intention, we can't reach that goal. And this whole conference is guided by vision, innovation, and action. And so as we think about our own intentions for today, I invite you to think about what you want to learn today, what you're hoping to get out of this. I encourage you, as you set your intention for these 2 days, that you think about ways to reach out to other people, to make new friends and colleagues. If you're a scientist, connect with some community members. If you're a community member, connect with some scientists, and our early career colleagues, our students, find some new mentors, find some people to gain some wisdom from. So we're really excited to see everybody really connecting. I hope that's part of the intention that you can create for yourself today. And I remind all of you that this is a safe space. So we all come together. We welcome people from all ethnocultural backgrounds, all gender identities, all sexual orientations, all socioeconomic walks of life. Everybody is welcome here. And so you'll see folks from all kinds of backgrounds talking, and everybody's welcome. And we ask everybody to join us in the spirit of cultural humility and with that deep sense of respect as we learn and grow with each other and from each other. It's not always easy. Sometimes it's a little bit hard, but this is where the magic happens. And so we're very happy to have you here. So on behalf of Dr. Robert Turner, the whole brain health, our whole Black Men's Brain Health Initiative, welcome and thank you. Let's have a great conference. Thanks. First meeting. I'm going to get some water first with our first presentation. All right, so as you see here, today's topic that I'll be sharing with you is Community-Based Participatory Research 101, Working in the Community. And again, my name is Dr. Monica Rivera-Mindt. I'm a board-certified neuropsychologist by training. My work focuses on the intersection between cultural neuroscience and brain health equity. I've been doing this work for many, many years, and not only am I trained as a neuroscientist and a neuropsychologist, but I'm also formally trained in doing community-based participatory research through the great good luck of being a faculty scholar at Mount Sinai's Center for Multicultural and Community Affairs. And I bring you greetings from Harlem, USA, where I do my work, where I live and where I've sent my kids to public school. So here are my acknowledgments and disclosures. It's a lot of stuff, but the main point is that I have no conflicts of interest. Okay, now before I get started, I want to make sure I'm good on time, okay? So here's an overview of what we're going to be talking about. So I'm going to talk about priorities. I'm going to talk about the prism or the lens through which we see science and we see this work, the process of doing community-based research, how one of the key factors of this work, and we're going to hear a wonderful keynote later today by the great Dr. Lisa Barnes, and one of the key factors that she's talked about, and which I agree with, is how it's so critical to focus on the gives to our community members when we do this work. So we're going to talk about focusing on the gives, and if we have time, I would love to answer a couple questions. And I just want to make sure, Dr. Turner, I have till 11 o'clock? I mean, excuse me, 10 o'clock? Yeah, 10 o'clock. Yeah, my time is very messed up right now, being from New York City, and so I'm reality checking. All right, so let's talk about priorities. So this is a screenshot from a wonderful paper that came out from the Alzheimer's Association a couple of years ago, and it was based on a survey, and they were talking about how we advance brain health equity, and what in the final recommendations, what they talk about are, if we're going to really advance brain health equity with regard to Alzheimer's and related dementias, there's really three key things we need to do. So the first is prepare providers to care for racially and ethnically diverse population of older adults, because it's happening and it's coming and we need to be ready. Our clinicians need to be trained and ready. Number two, we need to increase the diversity in dementia care. So I talked a little bit earlier about the significant disparities or inequities in prevalence of Alzheimer's and related dementias. However, what I didn't talk about were the inequities in care. And it turns out that if you're Black or Latinx in the United States, and you're diagnosed with Alzheimer's or related dementia, you're significantly less likely to be referred to and to get neurological care. I think it's about 30 to 40% less likely than non-Latinx whites. Not only that, once individuals and their families are living with Alzheimer's, because this affects our families very profoundly as well, once they're living with Alzheimer's and they do need care, instead of ending up at the neurologist's office, they're more likely to be seen in the emergency room. And they're more likely to have longer and more expensive stays. This is a really, not only to me is it immoral, unjust, and unethical, but it's inefficient to the bottom line as well. So I know that we can do better. Lastly, there's a profound need to increase diversity of participants for research and clinical trials. And that's a big part of why we're here today talking with you. But it's important to just take a pause on that last point, because since George, so I've been doing this work for the last 20 years. I'm going to age myself. I'm proud of my age. I've been doing this work for 20 years. And in doing this work for many years, for the first decade and a half, it felt like I was screaming into a vortex. That I was, I'm a black brown unicorn doing this work, not too much interest in the work. But then George Floyd happened, and then COVID happened, right? And as those things came and our culture changed, and people became more aware of the profound health inequities in this country. Individuals doing this work that I do, that Dr. Barnes does, folks interested in brain health equity, started getting more interest. People started, trying to, almost some studies started making like a race to try to start changing their inclusion numbers, because their inclusion of diverse populations was so not just bad, it was shameful. It was shameful. But they were not doing it necessarily in a way that is based on evidence, right? And so what we want to see more diverse observational studies. We want to see more diverse clinical trials, but not at the expense of harming our populations, our communities. These studies need to be ready to do this work, to come correct and not come in a way that's performative. And the way that we can do that is by teaching folks how to do culturally informed, community engaged research. And so we need to be guided by our priorities, by our values. And what I have learned, I'm going to share some lessons with you of what I've learned in these last 2 decades of doing this work, is number one, what it takes. Because I get this question a lot, what it takes. I want to do this, what does it take? First, it takes time. It's just, to do community-based work takes a whole lot more time than doing it's very fast research. It's really like thinking about, cooking a slow gumbo versus going out for takeout, right? There are 2 different things. And if you're going to do community engaged research with diverse populations, you need to realize that it takes time, it takes more money and resources. And here's the one that I think trips people up. A lot of people are like, okay, fine. So you've convinced us, we'll put in the time, we'll put in the money. But expertise, it's so interesting. So I want you to take a moment to think about like a neuroimaging study, right? So one thing, if you're going to take pictures of people's brains and do MRIs, you're doing a neuroimaging study, I would assume that the one person you want on that study is an expert in what? Neuroimaging, right? If you're doing a neuroimaging study and you're working with this method, you need neuroimaging. And if you're doing a study on Alzheimer's, you would need an expert in. Right. Thank you. So methods, you need methodological experts, you need experts in the condition of interest. And yet, when many studies have tried to diversify their projects, their trials, they sometimes will put in the time and the money, but they don't think about the expertise. They don't think, oh, I actually need to work with somebody who knows what it is to do work in brain health equity. I need to work with somebody who knows what it is to do community engaged research. And what this tells me is that this work is not valued, it's not prioritized, it is invisible. And it's to their detriment, because when folks have taken this approach of not really taking into account the expertise, oftentimes they don't get the results that they're looking for. And in the event that they are able to do at least better, sometimes it might be at the expense of the individuals from our diverse communities who are in those studies, who they haven't prepared for, haven't had all of the cultural competence training and all the things that are needed. So this is what it takes. It takes these 3, it's like a trifecta. Also, folks need to walk the walk. And so I've heard a lot about, certain, leaders wanting to say, yes, we want to diversify, but we need to really be mindful that leadership, PIs, principal investigators in these studies and trials are imperative. And instead of the boss telling folks what to do, you go do it. You frontline community recruiters, you outreach specialists, you go get us those people, you go get me that data. That's not going to cut it. In a true community engaged research approach, the leader is at the front, pulling everybody else along together as a team. That's how we do it. And then in terms of the when and how, I would argue, well, I'm not going to argue with you, but what I would say is that the time is now to transform our observational studies and clinical trials in Alzheimer's and related dementias. And we need to train everyone, regardless of background, not just doing the training for outreach specialists, not just doing the training for Black and brown folk who are interacting in the communities, for everyone, from the PIs all the way to, you know, every single person who's having a touch with a participant. They all need to be trained on evidence-based approaches to inclusion, to culturally informed, community engaged research. And finally, we need to support our scholars, so our emerging scholars, our health equity scholars, and provide training opportunities like we are doing here in the Black Men's Brain Health in order to change the landscape, to literally transform the landscape for clinicians and for researchers, so that in 10 years, we won't even have to be talking about these issues because we will be so far ahead of the curve. And this brings me, so we've talked about priorities to do this work. Now we come to PRISM. And so what I mean by PRISM is the lens through which we see our work, how we do what we do. And so this is really taken from a philosophy of science, or sometimes it could be called like an epistemological and ontological prism. And this traditional, so we have a couple columns. So here on the far column, it's who, what, where, when. And then here's how traditional research, how the philosophy of traditional research, and then what I've come to believe, so I put this together last year, what the philosophy is in doing culturally informed, community engaged research. And I just want to like take a pause here. I am trained as a traditional researcher, right? So I'm trained in this framework, right? And the way that I talk about this framework, when I think about it, it's like the conquistador framework of research, where we're trained to go, leave our ivory towers, go into communities that have been made vulnerable. They didn't just wake up and were vulnerable. They've been made vulnerable by structural and systemic racism and other isms. They go into these communities, they get the gold, which is data, put it on their backs, run back to their ivory towers, get all the gold from it, which is their papers, their more grants, their glory, all of that. But there's no real interaction or connection between that ivory tower and that and the communities that they work in. That's kind of fundamental. So what does that mean? Oops, excuse me. Let me go. How do I go back? Yep. Okay. Oh, I just figured out a problem. I'm so proud of myself. Okay. So who? So in traditional research, the researcher's role again is the conquistador, but in a culturally informed approach, it's the researcher's role is partner, not all-knowing demagogue. Not, me better than you, knowing everything, but a partner in the whole research endeavor. The action orientation in traditional research is get, I want that data, I want that gold, versus in this approach where it's the give. We focus on the give first. And in terms of the power leadership dynamic, traditionally the power is retained by researchers, whereas in this different approach, it's shared with community at every step of the way. In terms of the what, the study team and structure, the structure tends to be very vertical and patriarchal with the all-knowing PI, or PIs, principal investigators at the top, and everybody all the way down. Whereas in this approach, it's more kind of a more lateral, shared power, shared kind of responsibility approach, more matriarchal, if I had to give it a name. For the goal orientation, it's mercenary. So it's get those grants, get that data, keep moving in 5-year cycles. So NIH R01s, which are like a big type of grant, it's just get that money, keep going. It's mercenary. Whereas in our approach, it's community informed. It's about power sharing. And then the knowledge that's gained from those studies, it's typically also, retained by researchers rather than shared. In terms of the where does the research happen, right? So for typical traditional research, it's in those ivory towers, in those big academic medical centers, often places that myself and my family, we were afraid going to growing up. So I come from an Afro-Latinx indigenous family. My parents were immigrants, English is my second language. My mother was not here legally. when I was growing up, and we were terrified, not just a little scared or uncomfortable, terrified to go to those places. Those places weren't safe for us. We didn't know what was going on. They didn't speak our language. And when we did end up having to go, usually to the ER, I was translating, as a child for my mother or my family. And every time it felt like a harmful, traumatizing experience. So is that where we want to base our research? Well, the good Dr. Turner and I say no. And instead, we want to be thinking about how we can actually integrate community-based sites, community-based organizations into the research, how we can put our laboratories maybe in the community, right? How do we think of different ways of being, thinking, and doing? And then finally, when, for the time orientation. And this one you already heard me say. In traditional research, it's go fast, get it done. It is time limited. We are in, we are out. In community engaged research, we go slow, we go together, and we get there. So it's like the African proverb, right? And it's ongoing involvement. So it's not this idea of even having a community advisory board, which they're often performative, right? But they're only for 1 year, 2 year, the life of the study, and then they're gone, right? In this model, we as researchers, we as scientists are in the community, working in the community, day in, day out, regardless of where we are in a study cycle. You with me so far? Yeah, all right, okay, great. Oh, thank you, all right. Okay, okay. So what about the process? So how do we actually get this done? So here are the key principles for community engaged research that my colleagues and I've been on the board of the Harlem Community and Academic Partnership for many, many years. I serve in the role of treasurer now. And these are the fundamentals as we see it in terms of principles. So number one, recognizing community as a unit of identity, building on strengths and resources of the community. So we're not trying to take a pathology deficit approach in community, right? We're not trying to do that. We are focusing on the resilience of the community. We are focusing on the strengths of the community. We facilitate collaborative partnerships in all phases of research, and I'm going to show you a slide about that and talk more about that in a moment. We integrate knowledge and action for mutual benefit of all partners. So this isn't just about benefiting the investigator, so I get my next grant, I get my next first authored publication. No, this is about how everybody wins. So certainly scientists are going to need to benefit as well, but only in partnership with community members who are benefiting in ways that we've discussed together. Next, this approach promotes a co-learning, empowering process that attends to social inequities and inequalities. Next, it involves a cyclical and iterative process. So this isn't just we all get together, we've decided this is how it's going to go, and that's it. No. We are working it out together, every quarter, every week, every month, every quarter, figuring it out together, what works for our communities, how we can make our processes better. Next to last here, we address health from positive and ecological perspectives. And finally, we share findings and knowledge gained to all partners. So this is, this is a shared enterprise and everybody benefits. And I was mentioning to you before that this is actually an evidence-based approach, and I want to lift up and highlight the great Dr. Andrea Gilmore Bygotsky. She's at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She's a nurse practitioner, and she's one of my very favorite researchers on the whole entire planet. And she put together this recent, beautiful, systematic review where she breaks it down and shows very clearly in studies that, in 22 studies that were focused on Alzheimer's and related dementias, that took this community engaged approach to inclusion and retention and included multifaceted, more than one type of community outreach component. What I'm giving you the highlights here, but what they found was that in those studies, there was a positive effect. There was a positive effect. They created change. They were able to increase the inclusion of ethnoculturally diverse participants into the studies by taking this approach. And for me, I have two take-homes for you. Number one, this review supports culturally informed, community engaged research as an evidence-based approach to increase the participation of underrepresented or underincluded populations into Alzheimer's and related dementia research. And it also highlights to me that we need more high quality studies actually looking at inclusion science, because this is a new science. People have not really focused on how do we get people into studies? How do we understand our methods? So this is new, but it's a burgeoning area that I'm really happy to be part of. And this is a beautiful review if you're interested in learning more. So focusing on the gives. Okay. I want to save some time for questions, so let's keep going. So this slide, the Harlem Community Academic Partnership, my collaborators and I have modified this slide over the year, but it's you see the citation from the original publication here. But a couple things. So I want to highlight community is the chief ingredient. Here on the bottom in these white boxes, black and white boxes, you see the flow of research. So this is the whole scientific enterprise from the beginning where, let's say, a health concern is identified, to study design, to figuring out how you're going to recruit participants, measure what you're going to measure, all the way to data analysis and disseminating or sharing your research findings. This is traditional research. However, what we're talking about here in our approach to research is that at every single step in the research enterprise, we include community in every single step. So we work with community to figure out what issues are important and how we can design studies together. And I'll tell you, in all the research studies that I have right now, I have worked with my community members, at least in Harlem, if not beyond, to get their input on how to design the studies and do this right. And gotten input on the grant submissions, on study design and proposal submission. And here you can read kind of some of the positive effects of including community members at each step, getting advice on guidance, partnering with them to understand what works, and not just for recruitment, but for retention, because it's very hard to get, it can be very difficult and challenging at times to get individuals who haven't historically been into research, but once you get them in, you want to retain them. And so we have to be very mindful at that point as well. We partner with community members on figuring out what instruments, and let me tell you, I have been schooled by my community members in my kind of quantitative, maybe small-minded ways of thinking about how I'm going to measure behavior, how I'm going to measure cultural impacts, and they have taught me so much about how to do it better every single time. In terms of guidance on study deployment, like how do we do this, how we do it better, how do we incorporate measures of social determinants of health, of sociocultural and systemic determinants of health, and lastly, how they can partner with us to understand the findings. When we get the data, how do we interpret it? What does it mean? And then how do we disseminate it? And what I mean by this, when we share findings, typically scientists share findings at academic scientific conferences, through paper sessions like this, or through journal articles in scientific journals. So that's the traditional way. So we have kind of opened that up by also inviting our community members who are on Community Science Partnership board members to be part of that writing process when we publish papers. In fact, I think Phil Griffin has been part of that process through the CEDAR study. Is that right? Am I remembering? Yeah, and your input and the input of other communities has been integral in those scientific papers, telling us, oh no, you have the wrong lens there, do it this way, figure it out. And our papers have been better for that. And I've presented at conferences with community members, and not only presenting and disseminating our findings in journal articles, but also figuring out ways to share the findings with community members. In the CEDAR study, in fact, we've put together these community research summaries or briefs, which are easy one-page summaries that our community members and we can share with churches, with different community organizations, so to share kind of what we did and what we found. So again, at every single step of the way, we can partner in meaningful ways with community members. In terms of gives to community members, in our research, we really focus on community education and empowerment through, I hate acronyms, sorry, through our community research liaison program, which I can talk about later if there's time, through providing online study support for our community research navigators, by making sure everybody is reimbursed for their time. And many of the big studies that I've joined in recent years, people weren't getting reimbursed for their time. So think about asking somebody to be in a study, to leave their job, leave their caregiving responsibilities for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and not getting a single penny for that valuable time and wisdom. That's not right. And so we reimburse folks for their time. We provide them transportation if they need it. And we also give back in a key way with results disclosure. Here are some overviews of our specific positions in the community. We work with community research navigators who are like care navigators to help people at every step of the study process through email, phone, and text. We also work with community research liaisons who are boots on the ground to serve as a bridge between the community and the sites. And we also, in our work to make it more community engaged, friendly for communities, we have more flexible inclusion and exclusion criteria. Again, we've included sociocultural and structural determinants of health as our measures to really understand the data and improve our internal validity of our findings. And every single study that I conduct, we have guidance from our community science partnership boards. Here's just a brief overview. I get a lot of questions about how community science partnership boards work. We meet for about 2 hours quarterly. We have a break in the middle. We give them feedback. We give them updates. They give us feedback on what we're doing. We talk about priorities. They review materials or questions that we have. And together we work on strategies to improve engagement and deployment of our studies. And we try to minimize the burden on them between meetings. So we have very minimal emails usually. And if we do need extra help between meetings, we pay them for their time if we have extra questions for them. And in terms of lessons learned, I think it's critical that leadership becomes involved in this process to really engage community members, to share with the entire team that this is a priority, and that we prioritize also including expertise in this area and culturally informed, community engaged research into our studies if we want to diversify them and make them more inclusive and community engaged. We work in true partnership with community members, that everybody in the study, from the PI to any person who's having direct contact with a participant, that they receive training in doing culturally informed, community engaged research, that they understand how to do culturally competent assessments and research. In terms of the gives, we always focus on the gives to the sites to make sure they're supported, to the participants and the communities through giving feedback. And if folks are using digital marketing, that those engagement efforts are guided by community members as well. And most critically, that we always make sure that there's local involvement and participation. And again, this focus on lots of support and training. And if you're interested in learning more, be here, be at the Black Men's Brain Health. So we're excited to have you here to learn more. Just want to give a shout out to all of our participants, our scholars, our community science partnership board members, and all of the studies and partners that helped me be here with you today, and the funders for whom I'm very grateful. And with that, I don't know if I have time. I guess I have like maybe 2 or 3 minutes for questions. Is that right? Five minutes for questions? All right. Oops. Any questions, comments, or criticisms? It's all good. I'll go here and here. Yes. Oh, maybe you might need a microphone. Here, let me. Here, I'm going to come down. Okay, I worked out this morning. I'm good.
Thank you for that wonderful talk. So you said partway through the lecture, are you guys with me? And forgive me for saying this, I'm not 100% with you. And I'm with the goal, but here's what I'm kind of trying to ask about is I hear like what the community gets. I think the main one is in terms of tangible things. There's lots of intangibles. There's the engagement, there's the partnering. Those are, in my mind, kind of intangibles. But the knowledge is a concrete, tangible thing. But what can the community get that's more tangible? Like the PIs get grants, the PIs get papers, the PIs get their salaries. So what can the community people get that's tangible?
I didn't say this, so I'm so glad that you brought this up. So a lot of times when scientists write grants without thinking about community members or working with community members, they forget about community members, right? Surprise, surprise. So and I have as well. So I want to acknowledge and call myself out that historically I have as well when I was coming up. But now we write community organizations into the grants. So in one or two of my grants, each community organization we work with gets $10,000. So they tell us how they want to use that money. They get that money to promote our shared goals. Not only that, and it could be $10,000 or it could be smaller. Here, not here, but in Harlem, we supported a survey for East Harlem to understand what our elders need. So it was a health survey, like what do they need? What do they want? How might that align with Alzheimer's and related dementias? So money, that's tangible, right? And also these community research liaisons that we're talking about, they're in the communities. They go back and forth between the sites and the communities and can be embedded in community-based organizations if that's where the need is. And again, every community is its own universe, right? And so we come at this with a lot of cultural humility, but we don't come with an empty hand. You can't come with an empty hand. Is that concrete enough for you? Yeah. Okay, all right, thank you. Yep. Okay, thank you. I just walk all around like, I don't know, Barbara Walters or something, okay.
Thank you for that talk. So as someone who is engaged in community participatory design research, one of the struggles that I've seen, I'm not the PI, but one of the struggles I've seen, so on the board when they're trying to help develop the intervention, because of it's a good way to say this, the lack of like training and the expertise, I'm starting to see that a lot of them, instead of giving their input, they kind of like reflect back on me and they're waiting for me to give my input. Right. So any nuggets, some wisdom that you can help us out with it.
Right. So I'm going to talk about I didn't get your name. Chris, thanks. In our Community Science Partnership Board meetings, we start with talking about together laying out the parameters of how we're going to work together, how, we're going to make this happen. And it's very clear, we are in a spirit of co-learning together. It's true partnership and everybody has an equal voice. And I'll tell you, I feel like the Cedar Community Science Partnership Board member, partnership board is such a beautiful example of this. This was my first online Community Science Partnership Board meeting, which was scary, but we've developed such an incredible glue, such an incredible partnership. And, there's like up to 20 of us there quarterly. And we hear a lot more from y'all than we talk, but I think it's because we've been putting in the time and kind of establishing that trust and set the parameters from the beginning that we were all doing this together. But that's a good point. We also have, I'm going to think more about that, but I think we should write a paper about that together. Let's hear from Phil, Elizabeth, to the left, because he's on the board, so he probably has better ideas than me.
Yeah, there's a saying, and involving the community, there's a saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Mm. So, when you're coming at people, don't talk. And there's another thing, don't talk at them or to them, talk with them. So, and that opens up that trust so that you can build that relationship.
And so I think that's right. Thank you, Phil, for sharing. And it's a process, right? It's iterative. We didn't start the way we are now, I don't know, 3 or 4 years into it. It took a lot of time. And I think we're out of time right now. Is that right, Dr. Turner? We're out of time, but I'm around all day and I'll be at the networking reception, and I would love to talk with you and learn from you later. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you.